Our universities, in many cases, have become incubators for extremism. They become the equivalent of madrasas for jihadism. The power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
Well, as you just heard from Stephen Miller, it really didn't take long for members of the Trump administration to exploit the murder of Charlie Kirk to essentially roll back rights of Americans under this guise of fighting terrorism. And I remember back in 2003, right before the preemptive war in Iraq, this need of the Bush administration to start using the label of terrorist in order to justify their actions, I knew somewhere down the line that would come back to haunt the American people. And here we are today. Now, this again is reminiscent, if you ask me, of the aftermath of 9/11. Only this time the government is labeling half the population of the United States as terrorists, essentially. Let's hear more from Miller.
There is a domestic terrorism movement in this country. When you see these organized doxing campaigns where the left calls people enemies of the republic, calls them fascists, says they're Nazis, says they're evil, says they have to be removed, and then prints their addresses, what do you think they're trying to do? They are trying to inspire someone to murder them. That is their objective. That is their intent. And when you see online, Sean, as we've seen for the last few days, tape after tape after tape of federal workers, bureaucrats, staffers in the Pentagon, educators, professors, healthcare workers, nurses, celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk. These are radicalized people. There is a domestic terrorism movement in this country.
So I want to be clear. I am personally disgusted with the celebrations of Charlie Kirk's murder. I think if you value humanity and human life, you wouldn't celebrate someone getting gunned down like that in front of his family, in front of thousands of people. If you saw the video of him getting shot in the neck, which I unfortunately did see, you wouldn't be celebrating that, okay? There's something going on if you're unable to see Charlie Kirk as a human being, something outside of his political views. At the same time, though, I don't think that you have to necessarily mourn, right? If Charlie Kirk wasn't close to you, his death isn't necessarily impacting you. Okay, like you don't have to mourn, but don't go out of your way to celebrate it. That being said, labeling people as domestic terrorists and then threatening to do away with some of their rights is something that really concerns me. And in a moment of anger, in a moment of rage, some Americans might sign off on something like that. But take a listen to what Stephen Miller has to say, what he wants the Trump administration to do.
Under President Trump's leadership, I don't care how, it could be a RICO charge, a conspiracy charge, conspiracy against the United States, insurrection, but we are going to do what it takes to dismantle the organizations and the entities that are fomenting riots, that are doxing, that are trying to inspire terrorism, and that are committing acts of wanton violence. It has to stop. And my message is to all of the domestic terrorists in this country spreading this evil hate, you want us to live in fear? We will not live in fear, but you will live in exile. Because the power of law enforcement under President Trump's leadership will be used to find you, will be used to take away your money, take away your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom, Sean.
So there you have Stephen Miller threatening to debank Americans. You have, by the way, it's really important to note how easy it is to just label anyone a terrorist. Right, that's the problem. The vague way in which that label is kind of slapped onto anyone. And look, I think doxing is disgusting, regardless of who does it. So please don't dox. If you're on the left, please don't dox. If you're on the right, please don't dox people. However, at the same time, years ago, I remember covering a story about Turning Point USA and how they literally had published a list of professors for people to target. Okay, I wouldn't call for someone to be assassinated or to have their rights taken away for doing that. But I do think we need to have some sort of regulation, some sort of federal law that prevents doxing from happening, or at least codifies specifically what the consequences or penalties will be if you are doxing people with the intention of directing violence toward them. But see, that would be, trying to find a reasonable solution to an ongoing problem that I've seen on both the left and the right. But that's not what Stephen Miller and the Trump administration are interested in doing here. And so I'm worried about what the fallout is going to be and what kind of actions the Trump administration is going to take that could potentially roll back the rights of American citizens.
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little bit harsher in both directions. So first of all, no, you don't have to mourn the death of Charlie Kirk. We all disagreed with Charlie on 80-90% of things, I suppose. Or maybe it wasn't that high, but it was certainly very intense on the things that we did disagree on, right? But I think you should mourn it. And it's not because that means you love the guy or that you agree with him. And you certainly don't have to lionize him and say, oh, okay, now I'm going to say that all of his opinions were correct. That doesn't make any sense. If you thought they were incorrect last week, you presumably thought they are incorrect this week, right? Nobody's asking you to change your mind on any policy or anything. But if you can't feel some degree of sympathy or empathy for a young person that was shot and killed and left behind a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old and a wife and had a life ahead of him, then I'm worried about you. I'm worried that we've lost some moral thread there. Okay, so how do you know what Charlie Kirk was going to stay his whole life? So for example, we interviewed him at the RNC-DNC and we found out that he had a couple of shocking changes and that he realized that corporate rule was a real problem. And we talked about many different things, housing, blah, 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 right? The specifics are not important. The important part was, oh, look at that. He changed his mind a little bit on a couple of issues, not all the issues. In my lifetime, I used to be a Republican, I became a Democrat, and I rail against both parties, et cetera. We all grow, we change. And even if we don't, I mean, that's a young man who is dead, who was shot through the neck. I'm worried about the left if we can't muster up some degree of sympathy or empathy for that, not for his opinions, not for his policies, but for his gruesome, horrific death. Aren't we supposed to be the folks who are on the side of empathy? I hate scams, especially the ones that target seniors, and Medicare's chock full of them. Between commission-hungry brokers and thousands of confusing plan options, most seniors aren't on the best plan for them. That's why I partner with Chapter. They're fully independent and they work for you, not the insurance companies. That's really important. They can review all your options in under 20 minutes, and the average senior they help saves over $1,100 a year. And the best part of it is, it doesn't cost you a thing. So if you're turning 65, call the number on the screen to connect with a Chapter advisor today. So, okay, now I say that to the folks that are a small minority of people who apparently can't muster up that empathy, right? But it's a giant problem for us in all of politics that we take the extremes on both sides and pretend that it's the entirety of that side. So here we are again, doing the same exact mistake. So I saw some of the videos of people celebrating, I thought it was disgusting. And I saw the jokes people were making about the next shot. I mean, horrific. Jesus Christ, man. If you're on the left, you're against all violence and in favor of humanity and decency. So those people, I got no problem condemning them super strongly. And that is sick, and there's something a little disconnected with you if that's how you're feeling. I feel like we've dehumanized all of ourselves. Everybody's the enemy now. So that, and if they're the enemy, they're not quite as human as you. We see that in war, now we're seeing it at home. So I'm deeply bothered by it, for however small that percentage might be. So now to the right-wing reaction, what is this? Now we're gonna shut down freedom of speech? Now, whether you believe him or not, Charlie Kirk's #1 issue was free speech. And like if you ask anyone on the right, they'd tell you Charlie was for freedom of speech. Now, again, you could say, hey, I found instances where he was hypocritical and this and that and the other thing, but it doesn't matter. He wanted his legacy to be free speech. The right wing believed that his legacy is free speech. Okay, great. I'm in favor of free speech, and I was against cancel culture the whole time, and we were principled against it. We were principled against it during when Democrats were in charge and when Republicans were in charge. So unfortunately, now this is a much higher percentage. A huge percentage of the left said no, if they don't agree with us, there should be some sort of consequences, okay? That's hate speech, it should be banned, etc. I'll just speak for myself. I was a rare voice that said, yes, so what? Okay, they offended us. They said terrible things. We fight back by, nobody's taking our speech away. We get to fight back and win those debates, right? But a lot of people said, nope, take him off of social media, do this, deplatform, get rid of him. Megyn Kelly shouldn't be on NBC. Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, etc. shouldn't be on college campuses. And we fought back against that because being principled matters. So unfortunately, I think the left lost their principles when they were in power, and now we turn to the right. And what happened? I thought you guys said you were all about freedom of speech. Charlie said it, Trump said it over and over again. Trump ran 2 elections on that, 2020 and 2024. But now you're in power, and all of a sudden, we're gonna cancel people based on who Stephen Miller thinks might be aiding and abetting terrorists. In his mind, domestic terrorists. And now tons of people in power, not randos, are saying the left are domestic terrorists. Nah, this is exactly how you lose your freedom. And then if the Democrats get back in charge, then the 2 sides will flip. And then the right will go, no free speech, no cancel culture. And the left will go back to, no more free speech. I hate it, I can't stand it. It's called principles. Look into it. And if you're the right wing now, this is the perfect time to show your principles. If you don't come back to me later when you're in the minority. Now, I'll still have the same position no matter what anybody says, right? But this is the time to prove yourself. And guys, who do you think Stephen Miller is gonna say is aiding and abetting terrorism? We're gonna have a whole different story about this because they're literally planning to pass this law. It's being introduced in the House now, and it would give Marco Rubio the power to decide unilaterally. Of course, the first people they're gonna say is anyone opposing Israel. That's it, you're canceled. Whether you're on the left, the right, it doesn't matter. Take away your passport, take away your ability to speak. And did you notice what Stephen Miller said? We're gonna take away your money and power first. And then if you broke the law, we're gonna take away your freedom. So you don't have to break the law at all for them to take your money and your power. And so if you say, it's okay, it's only gonna happen to the left, I'm not on the left. Wait a minute. Nick Fuentes said that Charlie Kirk was a fascist, so that's it. All his rights and all the rights of everybody who follows him, that's gone, apparently, if you believe this ideology. Laura Loomer, right before Charlie Kirk was killed, said that he was a traitor and stabbed Trump in the back. So are we taking away her rights? Are we taking away, and who is she anyway? Is she in the pro-Israel camp? Is she in the MAGA camp? Should we take away their rights? None of this makes any sense. You shouldn't take away anyone's rights. And you should be absolutely horrified by what happened to Charlie Kirk.
You either are a supporter of liberal democracy or you're not. It's that simple. And I never thought I would ever fear the loss of our liberal democracy, but for the first time ever, I'm actually fearful of that. I really am. You have a group of people who are calling for a monarchy, absolute doofuses like Curtis Yarvin. I laughed about it. How laughable is it to think that Americans would want to be ruled by a monarchy? But little by little, we are losing our rights. The rhetoric from thought leaders, from the elite, from those who actually hold positions of power has become less democratic, more authoritarian in regard to doing away with certain constitutional rights. And look, aside from systems of government, aside from politics, again, I just really want to drill into people's minds. The notion of nonviolence and the value of human life. I am not interested in working with anyone who doesn't value human life. I am ready and willing to debate anyone. I'm ready and willing to engage in a war of words with political detractors, those I disagree with. And the whole point of a liberal democracy is to allow you to articulate your arguments, make a case for your beliefs, and engage in the art of persuasion. And whatever you might think about Charlie Kirk, he provided a platform for people to do that. It wasn't to convince Charlie Kirk per se. It was an effort to reach out to a completely different group of people, his supporters, who may have never heard of left-wing arguments articulated the way that we might want to articulate them. Murder, violence, those types of acts, in my opinion, are the acts of cowards, of people who are not confident enough in their beliefs to articulate them and persuade. And I'm terrified about what the future of this country holds, to be honest with you. I really am. That doesn't mean you're erasing or laundering some of the incendiary or inflammatory things Charlie Kirk said throughout his career. It just means that you are willing to engage politically through debate rather than devolve into a culture of disgusting violence and murder.
Yeah, it's just not hard at all. So Charlie Kirk said a lot of things that were offensive about Muslims, including Islam being the sword against the West's neck, right? Okay, so grew up Muslim, I'm from a Muslim family, I'm an atheist now, but so obviously me, my family, et cetera, can take great offense at that, and it is offensive. But they were just words. And so people say, well, he was trying to influence people in the wrong direction. That's right, that's why we're here, trying to influence people in the right direction. And that's called America. And yes, some of those words are also incendiary and allusions to violence, et cetera. And that's not great, but guys, they were just words. No, words is not violence, violence is violence. The only time words become violence is when you point to someone and you say, you should go harm them, you should go hurt them. Then that's a significant problem. No one should do that. But if you're generalizing, saying, okay, I don't like Muslims, I don't like black people, I don't like white people, et cetera. That sucks, that's a terrible thing to say. But so what? Oh, my feelings were hurt, so what? You fight back. You fight back with words, you fight back politically, you fight back with rhetoric. You don't then go, okay, since I was so offended, I murdered you. Well, that's 10,000 times more hateful. How could you not see that murder is infinitely more hateful than words? I mean, look, I think that 99.9% of all of us, including everybody, almost everyone on the left, can easily see that. So we've got to get past these extreme ludicrous radicals. That includes Stephen Miller. Because did you hear what he said there at the end? He's like, oh, I don't care what law it is, RICO or terrorism law. He hasn't even looked into it. He's not even trying to make it legal. He's just saying, I'm going to invent an excuse and I'm going to lock up people and I'm going to strip them of all, I'm going to rob them of all their money and I'm going to try to drive them into exile if they disagree with me. Because no one's broken the law yet and he doesn't even know which law. He just knows he's going to punish his political enemies. And if anyone on the right actually meant anything about freedom of speech that they said, they would be 100% opposed to what Stephen Miller just said. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets its wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.